Go, Rosie.
Okay. Hello, hi. Okay, so the dessert bar and talk is just about to start right now. So if we could just be replopping ourselves down the chairs, please, that would be great. I'm Rosie. This is Dan. We're from Warwick Christian Union, and it is such a pleasure to see you here today. Whether you've come along with a friend, you've come along just out of interest, or whether you've literally just come along for the desserts, or you have questions, every reason is a good reason to be here, and we're just thrilled to have you, and I hope you feel really at home. So without further ado, here's what's going on.
So we've got a talk now from Joe, who works with Christian Unions in London, and he's talking on how can I bring change to the world, or something along those lines. It'd be great. We've got a Q&A afterwards. So if you could be sending in your questions to Warwick Christian Union website, up on those two. Those would be really great. And if you don't want to text them in, we'll be walking around with a microphone as well if you want to ask any questions live. So we really hope you guys enjoyed the talk, feel really at home, and you guys are so welcome. Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys. Oh. When I was younger, my parents spent ages trying to get me to stop biting my fingernails. Honestly, I dread to think how much of their life, how many hours they devoted. Like, they just tried everything. First, they tried the hard sell, One day, you'll have horrible nails that don't grow anymore if you don't stop biting them now. Had that one. Or how about this one? It's really bad for your stomach if you bite your nails because you can't digest them properly. I think all that shows is that they are nail-biting amateurs. Anyone who's a serious nail-biter knows you spit them out, don't you? You don't digest them. That'd be madness. Anyway, the hard sell didn't work. So they turned to what I think can only be described as chemical warfare. They brought that disgusting tasting stuff that you dip your fingers in, and it's supposed to taste so grim that children literally can't bear it and can't bite their nails. Did it work? Not at all. I carried on regardless. So then, here you go. They brought me these bad boys. I'm not really sure it was ever that likely to work, to be honest, but I think the theory was that I would just be so excited at having my very own nail clippers that I would happily grow my nails just to be able to use them. Thanks, Mum. What a thrill. They tried everything, but I just wasn't that bothered. And I know it's a silly example, but I think that any of you who have spent any amount of time trying to bring real change in our world will recognize my parents' frustration, because it's hard to change people and to change the way they behave. And bringing change in our world seems to almost always involve changing people first. Listen to this from Greta Thunberg. The climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is wake up and change. Her words have, over the last 15 months, summed up the thoughts and feelings of many around the world, haven't they? They've shared her social media clips, they've rallied behind her at protests, they've followed her in campaigning for change in order to save the world's climate. And millions of us are making conscious lifestyle choices to do our bit by becoming a vegan, or by buying eco washing powder, or by taking less flights. Just out of interest, for a minute, put up your hand if you've ever bought or not bought a product because of ethical or environmental concerns. Look around, that is a lot. I'd say 90% of you. We are a responsible generation, aren't we? We know that our relationship with the planet is unsustainable in the way it is. Humanity is living in a way which suits us in the present, but it's short term. It's burning out and destroying our only home. And so we need to act less selfishly now to guarantee a future. We get that. But Greta's point still stands. We have all the facts. We have the solutions to end the climate crisis. But we don't have the large-scale change that many of us hope for. We know the need for change. We have alternative options. Yet governments and businesses seem reluctant to implement them, don't they? So groups like Extinction Rebellion are working hard. People like you are doing your bit. And we are seeing progress, undoubtedly. But it feels like much harder work and much slower work than it ought to be given the urgency of the situation. For another example, one of the ones that came up earlier when we asked you what's the biggest problem the world is facing, extreme poverty. Do you know it's estimated that the richest 120 people in the world right now, combined, have enough money to end extreme poverty globally within 20 years? That is staggering, right? Why is that allowed to continue? Some people are keeping millions of pounds locked up in bank vaults while millions of people are starving on their doorsteps. Why? If the way that we treat our planet shows we don't value it enough, what does this say about the way humans relate to each other? A select few get to spend a fortune on fun luxuries, while others have next to nothing. It seems like our relationship with one another is often pretty poor, just like our relationship with the planet. It's strained by selfishness. We have the resource we need to bring the change. Why isn't more happening? It's hard to change people, right? Sure, we can bring some change. We can change some people. We can make some progress. Plenty of people have proved that. We celebrate Martin Luther King or Emmeline Pankhurst or Roger Hallam, Gail Bradbrook. And we can contribute in our own ways too. We work hard to be agents of change. We can even help others to see the problem with the way we relate to the earth and the problems with the way we relate to one another and to join in our causes. We can help to change those relationships for the better. Things do change. But it's slower and it's harder than it should be when the causes that we're working for are just so self-evidently good and important. Why? Why is it so hard? Is there a better, more consistent way of changing people? I want us to look together for a few minutes at one episode from the life of Jesus, taken from the biography of his life written by a guy called Luke. It's going to come up on the screen so you can follow along with me. But the reason I want to look at this is because I think it offers answers to some of those questions we find ourselves asking as we pursue change. And I think it might just give us a spur of hope in the face of our frustration. Here we go, you can follow along with me. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. Jericho is a city 40 kilometers or so from Jerusalem, just north of the Dead Sea. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Now, you need to know that tax collectors were pretty unpopular people at the time. Here are two reasons why. Firstly, at the time, the whole region, this is Judea, was under Roman occupation. They were being ruled by the Romans against their will. And since the tax collectors were working on behalf of the Romans, they were seen by the public to be collaborating with the enemy. That's not a popular move. But secondly, as well as that, tax collectors were not especially honest people. They had a reputation for overcharging the citizens and then keeping the extra for themselves. With Roman backing, they basically had the power they need to extort the people for their own gain. And notice that Zacchaeus here is described as wealthy. That's probably got quite a lot to do with dishonest gain. And he's a chief tax collector, so he's extra bad. He's gotten rich by exploiting the poor. It's selfish, it's unfair, but he gets away with it. Let's read on. That's Zacchaeus, wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. I wonder if some of you can relate to that. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. You can almost feel his ego enlarging, right? In front of this huge crowd of people, Jesus has not only name-dropped Zacchaeus, but he has chosen to stay at his house. It certainly gets under the skin of everyone else. Look, all of the people saw this and began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." Why is Jesus hanging out with this guy? Jesus is a good man. Why isn't he going to dinner with Bill from the kebab shop? Everyone knows he's the nice guy in town. Zacchaeus, he's a right piece of work. He's a sinner. By that, they're saying he's morally dirty and unclean. Zacchaeus is a nasty man with a nasty reputation. He's selfish and unashamed of it. And Jesus chooses to go and dine with him. The people are rightly frustrated. As we continue, notice that the narrator here gives us an outside view. We don't find out exactly what happens over dinner with Zacchaeus and Jesus. What we get next is what the crowd would have seen. And a pretty dramatic change has occurred. Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay him back 4 times the amount." What? Is this the same guy? The one who's just been described by the muttering crowds as a dirty sinner now appears to be a lovely man. It's almost comedic the way that Luke writes it like that. Such a contrast. The one who exploited others now apparently wants to help them. The one who stole now offers to repay. The one who always put himself first now wants to put others first. And this isn't a vague promise. This isn't him leaving money in his will for a charity that he likes. This is a here and now, immediate and self-sacrificial difference. Just imagine the effect that this will have on Zacchaeus' community. Everyone will be better off. The poor most of all. Just think of the happiness that this would bring, the suffering that it would ease, the hungry people who would eat a little better that night. Zacchaeus' world will begin to change. But only because he has been changed first. But I wonder if you've noticed Jesus' response. Jesus says this, "Today, salvation has come to this house." Because this man too is a son of Abraham. Son of Abraham means that Zacchaeus is counted as one of God's people. For the Son of Man, that's a title Jesus used to talk about himself, came to seek and to save the lost. And this is interesting, because we might easily just see this story as one about a rich man realizing he was a bit mean and giving his money away. Some kind of ancient Ebenezer Scrooge, right? But Jesus wants us to know there's more going on here. This is a deeper story. This is a story of salvation, of someone being saved. And he emphasizes his point. I came to seek and to save you, not just because you're greedy, not just because you're selfish, but because you are lost. So Jesus' primary mission is not just making everybody a little bit nicer. He says he has come so that lost people might be found, and so that they might be saved, whatever that means. But at the same time, it's pretty clear that as a side effect of this encounter with Jesus, Zacchaeus is a new man. For us, changing people can be hard work, but there's something about Jesus that means an encounter with him is powerfully transformational. Something about a lost person being found and being saved, which just brings enormous change. Which all begs the question, doesn't it? What does being found and being saved actually mean? What is the nature of this encounter between Jesus and a human being that apparently gives it such transformational power? Elsewhere, Jesus makes his diagnosis clear. This is an issue of the deepest level. This is an issue of the heart. He says our hearts are miscalibrated, that they love the wrong things, or they love the right things, but in the wrong ways. I think this explains a lot about what we see in our world. See, Jesus says that we were made to love God above all other things. Not instead of all other things, but he used to be our priority. We were made to love him, and we were made to enjoy being loved by him. And then that shared love between humanity and God was to be so rich and full that it overflowed out from us in love for the other people around us and in love for the world itself that he had made for us. There is enough resource to go around, and there is a way of living on this planet sustainably and fairly so that all of humanity and nature can flourish. But it all flows from and is dependent upon that primary wonderful relationship between humanity and God. Except we've turned our backs on that relationship, and so our hearts have become miscalibrated. They're supposed to center on God. Now they center on other things. Good things maybe, good causes, but less than God. And just like a miscalibrated GPS leads to lost passengers, so miscalibrated hearts lead to lost people. We know the imperfect relationship we have with each other and with our planet because we see it. And those relationships are supposed to be sustained by a relationship with God which we just don't have. We're lost because the one we need most is the one that we've walked away from. We're trying our best, but it's like we've not quite got the power to relate to our world in the way that we want to. But to those who know they are lost, Jesus offers hope. Hope because he has come to find and to save the lost, even though he has every right to reject us as we have rejected him. As we look at Jesus, we see that God, the Creator, has come down to chase down his lost creatures and find them. We walked away from him into a lost existence, but he has come to find us and to bring us back. He's come to restore our relationship with him. Jesus makes a way for there to be reconnection, recalibration. And this is exactly what Zacchaeus experienced. An encounter with God, a reconnection with God, which has enabled a recalibration of his heart. And because his relationship with God is restored, all of his other relationships have a new capacity for goodness. And his experience of the incredible generosity of this God in coming to find him has created a natural generosity in him that just was never there before. And so Zacchaeus' world will change, but only because he has been changed first. And that is exactly the transformation that is on offer to anyone who will come to Jesus. Through reconnection with him, he promises to gradually recalibrate our hearts. He enables us to relate better to him, and then through that to relate better to other people and to our planet. This is real change. And here's the crucial thing. I wonder if you've noticed it already. We spend a lot of time looking at everybody out there and how much they need to change. And that is true. But Jesus says change starts with you. I'm interested in changing you. He wants to change your world, but he's going to change you first. It's not that you are a horrible person, but it's through relating properly to him and knowing his goodness that you become a fountain of goodness, overflowing to the world around you. It's through realizing that although you bring good to the world, you also have moments of selfishness, moments of brokenness in your relationships with the world around you. God offers reconnection, but it won't make sense to you unless you can admit that sometimes you're as much a part of the problem as you are of the solution. As Russian philosopher Alexander Solzhenitsyn puts it so clearly, the line between good and evil runs right through every human heart. I'm a cocktail of goodness and badness, moments of greatness and moments of selfishness. Some may be offended by that, but to those who can see it and humbly admit it, God offers his help. You know, God cares about bringing real change in our world, just like we do. This is a story of real change in our world, but it is brought about by changing people first. God wants to see our planet looked after. He wants to see the wealth shared around more fairly and our relationships made more gracious and kind. Knowing that he wants that makes pursuing change an even richer endeavor for us, and working with him makes it way more possible. It's part of humanity's purpose. And knowing that he is generous and kind and cares fiercely for justice in our world inspires those qualities even more deeply in us. This is what humanity's supposed to be like. We're supposed to be like him in all of his goodness. And that's what he will make us like if we let him. He smiles upon every little act of kindness you manage, even when no one else notices. He sees all of your little efforts for change, even the ones that you feel like make no difference. This is a God who genuinely delights in seeing you carefully wash out your yogurt pot so that it can be recycled in order to look after this world, because he cares about it too. And he says that the smallest and most insignificant things that you do in his name, he will not ever forget for all of time. How much meaning does that bring to our tiniest acts? Let Jesus recalibrate your heart to know the beauty of this God. He wants to know you, and he will use you to change our world for the better. But like Zacchaeus, he will change you first. I'm going to stop there. We'll take a pause. You can turn to the people on your table, tell them what you thought of everything I've just said. Please feel no pressure to be nice or hold back. In a few minutes' time, I'll come back up here with a couple of friends. We'll take your questions, either the ones that have come through electronically on the website, or we'll take them from the floor as well. So if you've got your questions, save them up, and I'll be back in just a moment.